Hello and welcome to the video. I just wanted to outline a project that I'm going to be working on over the next few weeks, which is essentially a poker fundamentals course that's going to be here on YouTube. The plan is to turn very complicated poker jargon and strategy into stuff that's really simple, digestible, concise, that anyone can just watch a 10-minute video and think, yeah, that consolidates my info on that, or I've learned something there about something which is very simple and something that is part of your game every single time you play. And the way that I'm going to do this, it's this idea that you should have kind of a core game plan. The core that I'm going to choose is hijack against the big blind, 40 big blinds deep. This is going to be like the core strategy, and that's a single raise pot. Everything else is just going to be adding layers and filters onto this strategy. If you could hypothetically play perfectly hijack versus big blind and big blind versus hijack in a single raise pot, and you understand how it all works, then if we add on different layers, so one layer is going to be the starting position. So if we're under the gun versus the big blind instead, if we're button versus the big blind instead, if we're hijack versus the button instead, etc. It's just expanding on that original core concept. The same thing we can do with stack depth. So we can look at 100 bigs deep, we can look at 40 bigs deep, and then we can look at 20 bigs deep and think, how does this change the way that we play? And then you can always revert back to, I know how to play this one spot perfectly, but now how do I add layers onto that to change my strategy in the moment so it becomes intuitive instead of needing to know like every single spot like a robot? Another filter is actions if it's a free bet pot. Another filter is flop textures. So obviously there's many different types of flop textures and it's going to completely change your strategy. Playing against a recreational player is a filter because it's your opponent's tendencies. Playing against a reg is a filter, and obviously there's different types of regs as well. And then there's also ICM, there's also bounty, so there's just lots of different filters to add to your strategy when you're playing that should be different depending on the context of the situation. And the one thing that remains consistent throughout all of these different filters on your strategy is it's always thinking about your range and your opponent's range and what that means, how we can best exploit them, what we can do about their range, what we can do about our own range. Hypothetically, once you know this core spot perfectly and you understand how all the filters work, you could come into any spot in game and think, okay, this is my default strat, this is how I'm going to change it, so here's what I'm going to do. And everything becomes more and more intuitive. This is how I think about poker, at least. I don't think I know perfectly how to play X versus Y and Z stack depth. I'm always just thinking, okay, as my stack depth gets lower, I know my hands and range want to do more things like this. As I'm earlier or later position, my range is wider or tighter, and then my range wants to do more things like this. And then obviously we can expand, we can look at turns, we can look at blind v blind, we can look at rivers, and it's always just starting with the poker fundamentals. So you've got your basic strategy down that you can always revert to if you're not sure what to do. So you can say, okay, I know how to play this spot perfectly. Maybe I've not been in a 4-bet pot, but I do understand the ranges are a lot tighter. The stat to pot ratio, which relates to stack depth, is a lot lower. How can I add these filters? And obviously we can go in more and more depth as time goes by. I'm going to be using GTO Wizard to go through these concepts because they have very great interface, very great software. We can node lock using their AI feature as well. So if we want to look at exploits, if we want to say, okay, I think my opponent is passive, how can we change our strategy versus passive opponents, for example? Or if we want to look at exact stack depth, like we have 55 big blinds. If you want to look at all the different flop textures in a report, so it's really convenient to look at, or all the different turns, how we play different turns just in one space. It's just really nice, really convenient. It's how I study as well. Yeah, that's my upcoming project. My aim is to make a 10-minute video at least once per week and make at least 15 videos. So if you have any topics in mind that you want me to go over, please suggest them in the comments. So if you think this is something you might be interested in, then please subscribe, share, like, all the good stuff, because seeing the numbers go up does encourage me to put the time into doing this. I think this could be the best free poker course out there if I do it good and I do it right. And worst case scenario, I think you'll learn something. There you go, Poker Fundamentals by me, coming to YouTube soon. I'm looking forward to making it. I'm looking forward to also improving my own game along the way, consolidating my own strategy and why I do things. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on Monday for the first chapter in Poker Fundamentals.